Yes, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Business Learnings. Um, a crucial part of every business education is the placements or the searching for jobs part. And, uh, you know, there are interviews, there are case competitions, there are HR rounds, but the most important of them, which prevails in uh, almost every domain of business wherever you are going for the interviews, is guesstimates. So guesstimate is uh, a combination of two words, guess and estimate, and using your analytical abilities, using your general knowledge, and most importantly, uh, using your structured thinking process, you can solve the guesstimates. And once you have solved the guesstimates, you have already done a great deal of impression upon the recruiter. So this video will give a sample example of what guesstimates are and how should we approach them. I'll take a very basic and simple example of a guesstimate. Suppose uh, suppose we have to calculate, we have to guesstimate uh, the approximate number of people uh, who are arriving at the Delhi airport. Okay, number of people who are arriving at the Delhi airport every day. So how can we do that? Remember, in guesstimation, uh, everything depends upon how you break down the problem. So you could break down the problem from two sides, from the demand side and from the supply side. So here, what is the first thing that comes to your mind when we talk about uh, the number of people arriving at the Delhi airport? Of course, it's an airport. All the people must be arriving from airplanes, right? So in a way, if we calculate the number of airplanes, we can arrive at that number, estimate that number, right? Okay, so the number of airplanes. Now, uh, for those who are familiar with the Delhi airport, they can, of course, um, they can say that Delhi airport has three airstrips. The airstrip is the part from where the airplanes take off and get down. So, since two airplanes cannot use the same airstrip at the same time, that's why there is always a queue. Okay, there is always a sequence. First one will take off, another one will land, next one takes off, and this goes on. So we might want to understand how much time does one particular airplane occupy a particular track. Let's just talk about one particular airstrip. Okay. Uh, let's just assume that one airplane occupies the track for 5 minutes. You know, slowly building up speed and then taking off. All of that takes about 5 minutes. Let's just say it is for simplicity. The exact number does not matter. Your thinking process matters. Okay, 5 minutes. Now, can we safely assume that the number of airplanes which are coming to Delhi airport on an average day is equal to the number of airplanes which are taking off from the Delhi airport? Can we say that? Of course, you have to say that, otherwise, there will be a collection of number of flights on that airport. The airport will be very congested. Okay, so 5 minutes. Let's assume that 5 minutes is what one aircraft takes, occupies one airstrip, and 5 minutes for the aircraft to return. Okay, so since we only have to count the number of arrivals, so we will not count this twice. So every 10 minutes we have an arrival. Okay, so every 1 hour we'll have six arrivals. Um, every 24 hours, well, we would be having 144. But should we do that? At this point in time, we want to show the recruiter uh, our ability to think and divide the problem, and our ability to reason. And we can say that since most of the flights are during the morning and the evening, you know, a lot of flights are not at the night. For simplicity, we can assume that most of the traffic comes between uh, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and then maybe 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Okay, so this 8-hour window is when the airstrips are the busiest, and for the rest of the timings, let's just assume that the airstrip is almost half occupied. I mean, the queue is almost half as long as the queue is um, in our 6 to 10 a.m. and 5 to 9 p.m. Okay, so for 6 to 10 a.m. in 4 hours, we will have, for every hour we had 6, for 4 hours we had 24, and for evening 4 hours we'll have again 24. So total number is 48. Okay, 48 is for the morning peak and the evening peak. For the rest of the 16 hours, we have assumed that the traffic will be almost approximately half of what the traffic is at when uh, traffic as compared to the peak hours. So 8 hours and 48 flights, 16 hours should be 48 into 2, 96 flights. But since traffic is only half, it will be again 48. 48 plus 48, approximately 98 arrivals. Uh, to make things simple, we can here say that, okay, about 100 flights, approximately 100 flights. Now, since Delhi is an international airport, this is the point where again you can show some of your thinking. Since Delhi is an international airport, some of the flights must be international, some of the flights must be national, and most of the flights, as per our observation, are as far as we know from the general knowledge, uh, most of the international flights are bigger and most of the domestic flights are smaller. We also know that there are a lot of domestic flights and not that many of international flights. So let's, for the sake of simplicity, assume that there are about 80% of the flights are smaller flights and 20% of the flights are bigger flights. So bigger flights, let's say, have twice as many passengers as the smaller flights. Now, for smaller flights, if you have ever traveled in Indigo or any such smaller flight for the sake of calculating, you must have observed that there are 30 seats, right? 30 rows, and in each row you have 6 seats, approximately 180 seats per flight. And on average, let's assume that 90% of the seats are occupied. An airline cannot sell all of the seats. Of course, it has to go empty. Some of the seats are empty. And maybe by general knowledge or by some assumption, you can state that maybe 80% of the seats are occupied, or maybe 90%. Let's say just that 90% of the seats are occupied. So 180 seats, 90% are occupied. So what do we have? 180. 90% of 180 is 180 minus 18, which is 162. So 162 passengers in a smaller flight, and uh, let's just assume that double number of passengers in the bigger flights. So that will be 364 passengers in the bigger flight. Okay. Now we had calculated that there were a total of 80 smaller flights, and each smaller flight has 162. So 162 into 80, this comes out to be uh, approximately 12,800, right? Approximately 13,000. Okay, and now 13,000 people are arriving from the bigger airports, from the smaller airplanes, and for bigger planes we had calculated 364 people per plane, and there are 20 planes. So this will be 7,280. So approximately 7,000 and 13,000 there. 13 plus 7 is 20,000. So we have approximated the number of passengers that are arriving at the Delhi airport at one particular airstrip. This comes out to be about 20,000 people. Okay. So far it's clear. The structure is clear. For the sake of revision, let me just reiterate the key points that I mentioned there. First, I divided the problem into peak season and non-peak season. I mean peak time and non-peak time. At peak time, we will always have the airstrips occupied, and at the non-peak time, we'll assume that there is 50% occupancy. Okay. Second thing that we assume that not all um, aircrafts are of the similar size. There are smaller aircrafts and there are bigger aircrafts. Bigger contain as much as 2x, two times of the smaller aircrafts. The third thing that we assume that there are about not all the seats are occupied, just 90% of the seats are occupied. So we made three crucial assumptions to arrive at our conclusion. So for the first, uh, for one of the airstrips, we calculated that about 20,000 passengers are arriving every day. Uh, so we since have assumed that Delhi Airport has three airstrips. I think they have three, but it doesn't matter. You can ask the interviewer or you can assume yourself a safe number. So approximately the traffic across all the three airstrips would be the same as per our, you know, maybe we can take the average, and this numbers come the number of passengers comes out to be 60,000 in the Delhi airport per day. So this was what was asked. If you want to calculate the number of passengers that Delhi airport handles every day, this number will simply get multiplied by 2. So because the number of people arriving is equal to the number of people departing, not necessarily, but for the sake of average, you can take this approximation. This gives us 1,20,000 people. You know, Delhi airport handles 1,20,000 people every day. Well, if you scale this up, um, see, this would come out to be, when you multiply it by 365, this would come out to be approximately 365 into 120, which is close to about 4,000, 4 crores and 30 lakhs. So about 4 crore people use Delhi airport every year. This is our approximation, and we can always Google it. And later, after we have solved the problem, we can always Google and check what is the actual um, number of passengers who travel. So I think every year India handles a traffic of 20 crore passengers on the airports. So our number 4 crore on just Delhi airport is, I think, will be a decent number, a close number. A number is not close when it is off by an order of, off by a different order. Suppose you have guesstimated something and you have arrived that the answer is 10 crore, but the actual answer is, 1 crore or 100 crore, less than 1 crore, more than 100 crore. You are off by a huge mark, but you have guesstimated something as 10 crores, and the actual answer is, 5, 6 crore or 50, 60 crore. It doesn't matter. What matters is the approach, the structure you involve, and how you solve it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like the video.